The league, the market for players, they're changing. It's time for the Packers to change with them.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Last week, we talked about the players, the positions the Packers seem to value in the first round as premium positions. We talked about this notion of them going, when they have just one first round pick, best player available at a need, at a premium position, not a need position necessarily. And it's clear, if that is the case, that they just don't view a position like receiver to be a premium position. Let's set aside for the minute the questions about the premiumness, the value in a vacuum of receiver. To me, when I think of premium positions, I'm thinking quarterback, tackle, corner, receiver, pass rusher. Those are the premium positions. Guard, no. Running back, no. Tight end, no. Linebacker, no. Safety, no. The Packers, a little in between on that. I think the Clinton-Dix safety pick he was their last blue chipper available, and they kind of broke their tendencies on that. That would be my guess. But when you look at the market for receivers, how much receivers are getting paid, that is when you have to start, if you're the Packers, looking at it going, well, wait a second. Jamar Chase just became the highest paid non-quarterback in league history. We've got receiver twos out there making $28, $30 million APY. Not that long ago, that was a nice payday for a quarterback. The value of hitting on a first round receiver means you could be getting, we talked last week about EV and like not wanting to galaxy brain everything, but not viewing receiver as a premium position. Again, if that's the case, means Green Bay is missing out on the opportunity at the best chance to get a player who's worth $30 million a year on the open market. That is missing efficiencies. Now, the Packers are really good at drafting those guys on day two. Really historically good. And I don't think they need to change the model of what they look for at receiver. I know there's been some discussions about that. I've talked a little bit about it because you see the success of Devontae Smith and you see the success of Jalen Waddle and you see the temporary success of Tank Dell, but it's temporary. Jalen Waddle last year was hampered by injury. Now, everybody could get injured, but the wear and tear of this game, I just think you're more likely. I believe in betting on the bigger guys, the guys who are 6 foot, the guys who are 195, to hold up for a season. Jaden Reed has been banged up. Basically, his whole career, certainly last year, was banged up. And part of that is if he's going to get 100 targets in a year, he's a smaller guy. He's going to take shots working the middle of the field. Linebackers, I know the rules don't allow you to hit players the way that you used to headhunt the way that you used to. That's good for player safety, but you still are going to take shots, guys running full speed coming at you. And you have to be able to withstand those things. I don't think the Packers have to change the way they evaluate the receiver position. But it's worth wondering if they need to adjust the way they value the receiver position. And I don't even want to get into the well, they haven't drafted a first round receiver. that part of it is separate. You can go back and look at a lot of these drafts where it looked like they didn't draft a first round receiver, but like, who cares? Because there wasn't really anybody to draft. They also traded up to 34 for Christian Watson, and they traded down into the mid 30s out of the first round to draft Jordy Nelson. So they still clearly value the position in some meaningful way. They just, for whatever reason, have not been in a position to use a first round pick on those players. My point is, whether they view it as a premium position or not in the first round, the urgency, to borrow a word from Brian Gutekunst, to draft one needs to be increased based on the value the position has around the league. Because again, if you hit on one, you can save $120 million because these guys come into the league never more ready than at receiver in particular. We see rookies come in every year in numbers. Now, the sweet spot historically for the draft is in the first and second rounds. I think the true sweet spot is the second round because of the draft capital that you need to allocate to first round players, the opportunity cost of not taking a corner or a pass rusher or a quarterback or a tackle, to me is, I think, worth the trade-off because you're so much more likely to get a good player in the second round than at some of those other positions, that it makes sense to say, we'll wait, and you draft that positional scarcity player in the first round, where if you want a good player, you have to draft them in the first round. To me, I understand saying waiting until round 2 is the best opportunity, but what I wouldn't understand is like if they took, I don't know, a non-pass rushing defensive tackle. They don't tend to do that, but that would be a for instance. Now, the other part of this, and I think we need to start thinking about guard differently. Because when you look at the guards around the NFL, I mean, Aaron Banks just got $18 million annually. They're getting up there close to safeties, corners even. And that tells you that the league is starting to value those guys at a high position. The defensive tackles, if the Packers view defensive tackle as a premium position, Devontae Wyatt, now that's when they had 2, but BJ Raji, I guess that was also when they had 2, but Kenny Clark, there's plenty of times when they've had D tackles in solo first round drafts. If you're going to have a defensive tackle, that's a premium position, then the guy who's blocking him has to be worth a lot too. Now, and I thought this is going to sound crazy, but I know, but it's true. Brian Schottenheimer said something really interesting the other day when he said you build a team outside in. And what he meant was the guys on the outside, the receivers and corners, they play a one-on-one football game. So you need guys who can win one-on-one matchups. The edge rushers and the offensive tackles, you need those guys to win one-on-one. On the interior, you can send help. If you have Aaron Donald, I can send my center to Aaron Donald's side every time if I need to. It's easier to give help to that side. Also, historically, the league is bad at ordering these guards. They're bad at deciding who the good guards are and who the bad guards are. And it is important for front offices not to believe too much in their own ability to scout. I'm not saying don't pick the players you think are good, but understand the risk of going outside of these models because the chances of you being right at that position are just lower, historically speaking, and thinking you're smarter than everyone else is a great way to make mistakes. You don't need to draft the guard in round 1. In fact, it makes sense to wait round 3, round 4, round 5. And so for the Packers, that's why round 4 really is the sweet spot. Draft that tackle who you think can play guard, the Josh Sittons, the TJ Langs, the Zach Toms, the David Bakhtiaris. There's a reason that formula works. And I think the Packers this year is a great year to do that. There's some guys I like round 3, round 4, just to add depth to this offensive line. And so for the Packers, I think that you can wait, but the market for guards is starting to move. And just like with receiver, I think we have to start wondering if at the very least we need to think about this differently. And this is in some ways about Jordan Morgan as well, that I said last year, if he's going to play guard, I don't love it in the first round. But given the way that the guard market is going, a tackle who can play guard and maybe also play tackle, maybe that's worth more than it used to be. And maybe we need to think about the ways that this is all changing. Now, I mentioned some of that historical hit rate stuff. We talked about that as a primer coming into draft season. I want to revisit that now with the knowledge of where we are in the draft process with these prospects. So how does what the historic hit rates tell us about where the Packers ought to go in this draft with this class of players? That's coming up on Locked On Packers. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. If you draft a pass rushing defensive end in the first round, you have a better than 50-50 shot of getting a quality starter. If you draft that same defensive end or edge rusher in the second round, that number, historically speaking, falls to under 50%. It falls to 43%. You draft the pass rusher on the edge in the first round. And the interior pass rush, the defensive tackle, that curve is flatter. So you are more likely in round 2 to get a starting interior pass rusher. In fact, you have a 51.4% chance of getting one in the second round. In the third round, you have almost as good a chance of getting a starting caliber interior pass rusher, 41.8%, as you do drafting an edge rusher that's the same quality of starter in the second round. So if what you want is an interior pass rusher, you can wait. You can wait to round 3. Well, guess what? This class in round 3, there's some good players, some guys that I think are going to be there for the Packers in round 3. And you look at the consensus board, Deion Walker, I don't think he's going to be a Packer, but he's there as a round 3 kind of player. Jordan Phillips, the defensive tackle from Maryland, as a round 3 kind of player. Omar Norman Lott, who's a little undersized, but the guy can rush the passer. That's a round 3 defensive player. Maybe Shamar Turner from Texas A&M makes it down there. This is a class. I think that's where Joshua Farmer from Florida State should go. Alfred Collins from Texas. Now it seems like he's going to go higher than that, but that's where I would like him in the third round. What about someone like, you've got Birch from Oregon, Jordan Birch, 6'4", 280. Interior pass rusher, base down defensive lineman, base down D end. Could that make some sense? If you want that pass rusher, that high-end pass rusher, your best shot at doing it is in the first round on the edge. So that if you're trying to game this out for the Packers, you're trying to get that guy early. And a little bit like, we talked about the pass rush, like, do you just wait then? I don't think that's going to happen. I think you got to get this guy in the first round if you can. And if you don't love your options at the first, I would trade down and then see what happens. Now, my guess is, we talked about this last week, you're going to find one of those guys that you like. There's going to be someone they like in that first round, but it's not crazy to think that they wouldn't. Now, here's the problem. You have a well above 50% chance of getting a starting corner in the first round. A well above average chance. In fact, the draft success of getting corners in the first round is about as good as any position. You are as safe taking a corner in the first round as you are at almost any position. And to me, what that really means is it is the most confident you can be in your evaluation is at corner. Now, you still decent chance in the second round, 40% at a starter, and then it really flattens. So really, you want to take one in the first 2 rounds, but the first round is the place to get a corner. I think the question for the Packers is there someone available there? Does Will Johnson make it to your pick? Does Jahdae Barron make it to your pick? And I think if the answer is no, you take your pass rusher, you say, thank you, sir, I will take another later. And you wait until round 3 to take that corner because you went out and you got Nate Hobbs as insurance. I don't love this corner class in terms of the depth. So if you feel like you need one, you got to get one early. But that guy's got to be there for you. And I think if he's not, if Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron are both off the board when the Packers pick, it is because one of these pass rushers is there for them. What they have to figure out is Mike Green on their board? Is he big enough? Is Donovan Ezaraku from Boston College, is he big enough? Are these guys capable of playing for the Packers? How narrow is this margin? I think there is a ton of opportunity to draft either an interior or an edge rusher in this class, but I think the draft falls off at both of those spots pretty considerably, and I've mentioned this on a previous show, about pick 50. Now, interestingly, they brought TJ Sanders in for a look, the highest defensive tackle that they've brought in for a visit in terms of the consensus board where he's being mocked and projected and all that stuff. I have him as a top 50 player. If he's there when the Packers pick in the second round, I mean, hammer that. Like if they go defensive end, defensive tackle, if they take Shamar Stewart or Donovan Ezaraku in the first round and then take TJ Sanders in round 2, like pass rush solved. Jalen Royals in the third round, let's go. Who cares who's playing corner? Quarterbacks are going to be struggling to stay upright. So, I mean, this to me, if I'm trying to game this out, I think I can get an interior pass rusher a little bit later. So if that top guy, that top edge guy isn't there and one of my top corners is, I'm taking the corner. My goal would be to hope that pass rusher is there. And so how do you manage that with the receivers and the corners and everything else? Well, the historical hit rate at receiver, we talked about this in the opening, is in the second round. That is the hit rate. Sweet spot. So for the Packers, again, if I'm trying to game this out, I'm frankly content to wait on the corners. I really am. Because I think you could draft a project on day 3, like in round 4, and hope that, by 2026, he's ready to go. We talked about Darian Porter last week. So if you can get that edge, Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart, Donovan Ezaraku in the first. Then in the second round, you get a Jack Besh, a Jaden Higgins, Jalen Royals. And then in the third round, You get a Jordan Birch who can play on the edge or maybe slide into tackle, maybe be your Eric Armstead kind of player. Oregon lineage there. Or a TJ Sanders makes it to you in the third round. A Joshua Farmer makes it to you there in the third round. I like that outcome for the Packers. Or maybe a Darian Porter. I don't see that. I think he's going to go early. Guys that athletic just at a premium position are going to go early. I don't really love the round 3 corners. That's why I would just be content to wait. I'd be trying to find some interior juice if I could. This draft class does not provide a ton of opportunities at triaging some of the positions where the Packers have some needs. Most drafts don't. So for the Packers, they're going to have options in the first round. The question is, what do you think? We did the if then a couple weeks ago. Like if corner in the first, where can you get these other guys? All I know is I want that second round receiver. That's like, you take a corner in the first, you take an edge rusher in the first, cool. One of those two guys in the first, I think can materially impact your defense. Then you get that receiver in the second. You've set yourself up for the rest of the draft. Speaking of the rest of the draft, let's do a full 7-round mock for Mock Draft Monday, since we only have a couple more of these. A full 7-round mock, baby. Let's do it next on Locked On Packers. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check all your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, we're not going to do Mock Draft Monday live because 7 rounds live would take like the whole show. So we're not going to do that. I've already done it. So this is going to be what I personally would do because I said so. Now, I had a lot of good options in the first round. Mike Green from Marshall was here. Luther Burden, I was very tempted by. James Pierce Jr., Emeka Ibuka. So multiple receiver options. Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle from Texas. Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Mississippi here. Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota State. Derek Harmon from Oregon. They were all there. And who could I pick that would make you the most annoyed? I picked Kelvin Banks Jr. because he was the highest graded player on my board. I think he's a top 10 kind of player. If he's there at 23, I would run the card in, not worry about Jordan Morgan, not worry about Rasheed Walker. Take the best player and feel like you are keeping a strength, or even enhancing a strength. I think it would be a coup for the Packers to get a player that good in the first round. And again, we didn't talk about this in the historical hit rate portion of the program, but you want a good tackle, you get him in the first round, premium position, and he can play tackle, he can play guard. Now, in the second round, Maxwell Hairston is there, the corner from Kentucky, just too small. I don't think the Packers are going to be into that. Quinshon Judkins, the running back from Ohio State, is there. Shamar Turner, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M, is there. Darian Porter, the cornerback from Iowa State, is there. And Jaden Higgins, the receiver from Iowa State, is there. You know who I took. I took Jaden Higgins. Now, I think the Packers would need to get some speed. But here is your backside X receiver, ball winner, red zone monster, 3rd and 6, dial something up for him and let him go cook. He is the perfect complement in this offense to Jaden Reed. I'd like a Z because I think Dontavian Wicks can play X and be that backside guy. But that's a big if, I think. I think Higgins has considerably more upside. And so I like this pick here. The Packers, they need a difference maker here. And I think this is, again, the sweet spot for a receiver. So they're getting a difference maker in this spot, no doubt. In the 3rd round, Chris Paul Jr., the linebacker from Ole Miss, is here. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon. Jalen Noel. Jonah Savanea from Arizona. That was appealing to me. And this is why, if it were me in a perfect world, I would wait on offensive line in the 1st round, because I think there's guys in the middle rounds that the Packers are going to have interest in, that I would have interest in. And so, like, I felt like, oh, shoot, like that would have been a very Packers-y pick, and I would have liked it. So, DJ Giddens, the halfback from Kansas State, was here. But what I think ultimately makes the most sense is I had to go down the board a little bit, but I don't have a pass rusher yet. So I had to deal with that. And I got Femi Oladejo, who I think, again, I've talked about this before, is the perfect guy to come in. I think he can play linebacker in base, play the Sam linebacker spot. He played off the ball at UCLA. And then as a blitzer, a sub-package pass rusher, is someone who is a developmental pass rusher, but again, you can let him play off the ball while you're trying to develop him, and then really get a fun upside player. You're not going to find a guy with that much more upside than he's giving you in that spot. I'm not going to go through like who was all available for the rest of these picks, but in the 4th round, I was able to get Noah Williams, the corner from Cal, absolute ball hawk. And I feel like I've banged out, you got 4 premium positions here: tackle, receiver, edge, corner. And I've got 4 guys who I think can compete to start for me right away. Round 5, Danny Stutzman, the linebacker from Oklahoma. I think they have to get a linebacker here relatively early on day 3, someone who can, maybe be a developmental kind of player. Stutzman tested extremely well, experience at a major college program. He is a special teams day 1 player for you, no matter where he goes on offense or defense, And there is some potential there. They need some more bodies at linebacker. The future of Quay Walker up in the air. Not that he would come in and compete to be the Mike linebacker, but at the very least, you have a backup, because Quay Walker, let's be honest, has had some injury issues over the course of his career. The perfect pair for Jaden Higgins in this draft for the Packers is Dante Thornton Jr., the receiver from Tennessee. He's similarly sized and built, but can absolutely fly. A 4'3" guy at 6'4" and 200 pounds is a Packers type all day. I think he's going to end up going earlier than 198, but let you flip, Stutzman and Thornton, and I'm fine with it in round 5 to add that speed. They need that speed element, even if he's just a guy who opens up things for everybody else with some speed, and they hit him on 1 or 2 deep shots next year. That's worth it. In the 7th, Packers have 2 picks in the 7th. Seth Hennigan, quarterback from Memphis, was on Jason Hirschhorn's, searching for Hasselbecks, hunting for Hasselbecks. I screwed it up. He's a Packers type, a ton of experience, good enough athleticism, probably is a priority free agent, but it's round 7, so who cares? And then Trey Wadig, the tackle from Indiana, he's 6'6" and change, 315, tested pretty well, had an elite 10-yard split so he can get off the ball. This is your Caleb Jones developmental big guy. And the Packers, like Brian Gutekunst drafts offensive line every year. They're going to draft somebody, so don't make a mock draft without an offensive lineman in it. It's not realistic. The Packers are going to draft someone, and here they are. So Calvin Banks Jr. in the 1st, Jaden Higgins in the 2nd, Femi Oladejo Noel Williams in the 4th, Danny Stutzman, the linebacker, in the 5th, Dante Thornton Jr., the receiver, in the 6th, Seth Hennigan in the 7th, Trey Wadig also in the 7th. I would have liked more pass rush, but this is how the draft broke, and I got difference makers at 3 other positions, I feel like. So I like this. I like this draft. All right, back tomorrow. More coming as we get you set. Next week, the week after is the draft. So, no, wait. As we're recording this, next week is the week of the draft. Holy cow. It's here already. If you're going to be in Green Bay, hit me up. Let me know. Let's meet up. Follow me on Twitter, the social medias. Follow the podcast on the social medias. We're always putting clips out, having fun. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube so you can stay locked on Packers.